All right, let's dive in. Today we are talking about AI agents. This is the tech that's taking AI from something you just chat with to something that's a genuine collaborator. We're going from talking to AI to actually working with it. So let's break down how that happens.
Look, we've all used a chatbot, right? You ask a question, you get an answer. Simple. But what if that AI could actually take your request and get things done in the real world? Research a whole topic for you, analyze a bunch of data, maybe even book a flight. That's the jump we're talking about, from a passive chatbot to a proactive agent. So to really get this, we've got to start at the foundation. We'll call this level 0. This is the absolute core of any agent, its reasoning engine. Honestly, you can just think of it as its brain.
At its heart, a level 0 agent is basically just a large language model, an LLM, and it's incredibly smart, packed with all the information it was trained on. But, and this is the most important part, it's totally disconnected from the live outside world. It has no tools to look things up, and has no memory of what you just talked about.
And this right here shows you the problem perfectly. Ask a level 0 agent about the 1929 stock market crash. No problem. That's history, it's in its training data. But ask it about something that hasn't happened yet, like who's going to win an Oscar in 2025, and it's got nothing. Its knowledge is basically a photograph of the past. It's static.
So how do you fix the problem like that? Well, you give the brain some hands. You give it some senses. And that brings us to level 1, where the agent gets access to tools and becomes what we call a connected problem solver.
And the way this works is actually pretty slick. So the agent gets your question, and it realizes, hey, I don't know the answer to this off the top of my head. So it picks the right tool for the job, maybe a web search for a news story or a financial API to get a live stock price. It uses the tool, grabs that fresh, live data, and then puts it all together to give you a smart, up-to-date answer.
Okay, now this is where it starts to get really interesting. At level 2, the agent goes from just being a simple tool user to becoming a real strategic partner. It starts to develop these advanced skills, things like memory, reflection, and planning, that just completely change the game.
First up is memory, and this is so important. Without memory, every single time you talk to an agent, it's like you're starting from scratch. It's like having a conversation with someone who forgets your name every 2 seconds. It's frustrating. So by giving the agent memory, we let it keep track of the conversation, learn from what you've said, and give you an experience that actually feels personal and, coherent.
Next up, we give the agent an inner critic. This is called the reflection pattern, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the ability for the agent to just stop for a second, look at the work it just did, and ask itself, is this any good? Is it accurate? Could I make this better? That ability to self-critique is a massive leap forward for getting high-quality results.
And there are basically 2 cool ways this can work. On the left, you've got self-reflection, where the agent just kind of critiques its own work and keeps refining it. But on the right, you have this producer critique model. This is really neat. One agent, the producer, does the work, and a completely separate critique agent gives it feedback. Having that second opinion helps avoid what the source material calls cognitive bias, the producer agent being blind to its own mistakes. It just leads to a much better outcome.
So you might be asking, okay, when do you actually use this? Well, there's a really clear rule of thumb here. You use reflection when quality, accuracy, and detail are way more important than how fast you can get it done. Yeah, it's a bit slower, it uses more computing power, but for things like writing a detailed report or debugging code, it is an absolute game changer.
The last piece of this level 2 puzzle is planning. This is the agent's ability to look at a big, complicated goal, like, say, research the entire European venture capital market, and then break it down into a bunch of smaller, doable steps. It's really the difference between being a worker and being a project manager.
And check out how this all comes together in this flowchart. The agent gets a complex question. First, it plans by coming up with a series of search queries. Then it acts by running those searches. And then, this is the crucial part, it reflects on what it found. It asks itself, do I have enough info to answer the question well? If the answer is no, it loops right back and does more research. Only when it decides the context is good enough does it finally put together the answer. So, let's just do a super quick recap of this ladder we've been climbing. We started at level 0, the basic brain in a box. We moved up to level 1, where we gave that brain tools to see the real world. And we ended up at level 2, the strategic partner that can actually plan, remember, and think about its own work. And all of this leads to a pretty huge conclusion. What we're seeing here is a fundamental shift in how we relate to AI. We're moving from seeing it as a simple tool that we use to collaborating with it as a genuine teammate.
So why does any of this matter? Well, the bottom line is this. We are moving way beyond just asking for information. AI agents are becoming proactive partners that can complete tasks for us. They can do the research, compile the report, and analyze the data all on their own. This is about augmenting what we as humans can do, not just answering our questions. It's a whole new way of working with computers.
And that kind of leaves us with this one big, fascinating question to think about. As these agents get more and more sophisticated, as they go from being our assistants to becoming our creative and scientific partners, what incredible new things are we going to be able to discover? What new frontiers will we unlock together?